Let's get more analysis of this situation and bring in Patrick Berry. Patrick Berry is a senior associate professor in warfare and counter terrorism at the University of Bath. Patrick, thanks for being with us here on France 24. We appreciate your time. To start with, what's your take on this incident involving the jet of Ursula von der Leyen?
Good evening. Yeah, it's something that somebody, or others have pointed out has been going on much closer to the Ukrainian airspace or the Russian airspace in the past. It's fairly frequent. We've had the carrier Finnair being forced to turn around from a flight to Estonia, for example. But this is, as far as I can tell, given where Plovdiv is, the furthest geographically away from Russia where something like this has happened to such a high-profile person. So I think it's a signal. It's that's how I'd interpret it. It's too far essentially from the front line to be military jamming gone wrong, or overextended, etc. And so yeah, I think it's a signal, and I think it should be interpreted as such, and hopefully, as your previous correspondent said, it results in extra investment in more lower orbit satellites for the EU's use and better countermeasures, etc.
Indeed, one talks, and many experts talk, and many people with great insight, such as yourself, talk about the threat coming from Russia, and that threat being not so much the threat of military ballistic action, but cyber terrorism, those kind of issues, the such things that we're talking about. And this EU action plan that's been mooted as a possibility, how might that look in reality? How might that work? Speaking from a layman's position, it's hard to imagine how you start to combat this kind of cyber terrorism.
Yeah, well, cyber terrorism is sort of one part of this. What you're talking about, some people call it hybrid war. Other people, I think a much easier way to actually talk about it is sub-threshold. There's a threshold which would have a conventional response so that the countries that it happened to would actually go to war over. Yeah. And so the Russians are trying to keep their actions, coordinated actions across multi-domains, including targeting the population, targeting politicians, etc., 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 disinformation. They're trying to keep it below a threshold of where there'd be especially an Article 5 response, but even a national response. And yeah, I think it's a very difficult piece of work to do for the EU, for NATO, for the countries involved. I mean, anyone who wants to read, the brilliant book Putin's People, you'll just get a complete understanding of how Putin thinks, how the KGB think, what their strategy of Maskarovska is about in terms of attacking the West through numerous different means, and that's economic, that's sabotage. As I said, it's disinformation, and it's these other kind of issues where you have, just sort of sowing a threat as well. You've got to remember we've had a lot of lines cut, mysteriously cut, trains derailed, etc. It's a full-on campaign. It's in full swing across the whole of Europe, and I just wonder. The question is, how much does Europe take?
Indeed, Patrick, just to name check that book again, Putin's People by Catherine Belton. I think you and I are reading the same material. It is a real detailed analysis of just what is behind Putin's movements right now and what Russia is aiming to do. And it is quite a scary read in many ways. The pilots of the Ursula von der Leyen private jet resorted to old school navigational tools to get the plane where it needed to go. There we go. I'm wondering how ordinary people respond to the possible threat that they might face. It could be, as you say, bigger targets, such as governments, such as businesses. But of course, ordinary people too have never been more vulnerable.
It's about education. The main thing, really, in combating this, it takes cross-government, cross-national effort to build social resilience. And, at a time when you can see that it's not the only thing that's happening. People are angry for a reason. Here in the UK, obviously, at the moment, it's about illegal immigration, and there are high rates of that. But, some of that, there's evidence to suggest is being driven by powers like Russia, who are leaning on General Haftar in Libya to allow people to come up from Africa and through and into Europe. And then, guess what? They make their way to the UK. So, this has been a part of a tactic which is being used against the European Union. We saw it, again, on some of the other eastern crossings as well. I think really it comes down to the work piece. It's about education. It's about social resilience. I think, to be honest with you, there's an, how much you can say this, but like an information control angle here. Like everybody's got basically now, they've got a portable studio connected to the Wi-Fi, to the internet in real time. I don't know how you actually end up in a thriving democracy when you've got varying degrees of education level and people, struggling to interpret some of the information that are coming over their phones. All of us included, we've all got it wrong at times. So, I mean, one of the things that kind of I think about, if you did end up in a conventional war, what is the information plan for day 2 of that conventional war at nation states, and what are they going to do? Because you can't have this. We had, one of the reasons the West won the Second World War is because it had very strong and effective censorship, give or take a couple of radio channels. So that's what we're dealing with, really. It's a very complex picture. It's got huge moral and ethical issues for democracies. But I think, the longer term picture, if they stay the way they are and don't start to cohere and put effort into social resilience, societal resilience, they're going to find themselves undermined.
Patrick Berry, Senior Associate Professor in Warfare and Counter Terrorism at the University of Bath. Thank you, sir, for joining us.